Welcome back, gamers. Justin here with you again, and today we are going to do some sprint planning and maybe a little bit of sprint retro as well to talk about the previous sprint. So let's get straight into it, right? So let me jump into Codex. This is, for those of you that don't know, this is where we're tracking the majority of our work. This is kind of a high level view, so what you see here definitely doesn't detail out in full detail the actual work that goes into this. So we're using these as kind of like epics of sorts. And then we take these, we move them into Azure DevOps, and then we use DevOps to actually break them down into true epic feature story, tasks, bugs, whatever it may be that is actually being worked. So, what you're looking at here is kind of a high level. But it should give you a good overview of what it is that we're working on in this coming sprint and what we're going to work towards. So let's go back to the movement or the menu movement in Steam, and I want to give you an update on all of that. So the menu is in place. I am not prepared to show that to you yet because it's kind of rough, but the core of it is there. We still need to refine it a little bit, and we'll do that kind of gradually as we progress through these milestones. But the movement is in place, and we'll kind of demo some of that out here shortly. And the Steam page, I am happy to announce, is up and live. So if you're watching this, please head over to Steam. The link is down in the description. Head over to Steam. Be sure to wishlist it. It does help with the Steam, recommendation engine, I guess is the best way to put it. So head over there, wishlist the game, and use that to kind of track us. We're going to start to use the Steam community and whatnot to announce some of the stuff that we're after and that we're working on, and use it to track bugs and progress and feature updates and all of that kind of stuff as well. So in addition to Discord. So if you haven't already joined the Discord, do that. Otherwise, head over to Steam and track us there. So but I'm happy to announce that all of this has come together in a way that we're happy with. The movement we will probably still kind of tweak, but I think we're going to wait until we actually release this out to a handful of you for really early closed beta testing. The idea basically is to we want to see how you like the movement that we put in place. And what you're going to see today isn't the full movement. I've got some of it turned off just so I can kind of zip around the map and stuff to show you stuff. But when we release this, the goal is that we want to get your feedback on it in that early wave, and then we'll take it and kind of tweak it from there. So we built in a lot of parameters, a lot of settings, that type of stuff, to where we can actually go in and just kind of tweak it without having to write new code now. So we spent a lot of work up front giving us a very robust, or what we consider to be a robust first-person controller. And that will give us the ability to hopefully react pretty quickly to player feedback when the time comes here soon. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So happy to announce everything in the previous sprint is completed, at least to a point where we're comfortable with it to mark it as complete for now. We may circle back, like I said, but for now, we're in good shape. So let's jump up to the current sprint. So if we look at this, January 1st is when this current sprint ends. So we're starting a new sprint today. We have 2 weeks to work on this, and that takes us up to the 1st. So if we look at that, the roadmap for this, so the major milestones that we need to accomplish in this particular sprint, it's all wrapped around networking, interactables, infrastructure, and damage models. And I will go through each of those kind of independently as we work through this. But the first one's pretty straightforward, networking. So we have already put kind of the foundation and the framework, so we're already ahead on this one a little bit. So we're using Mirror, and I know previously we had talked about using Dark Rift 2. Actually, as we started getting into that, we actually didn't like Dark Rift 2. It's really unique and interesting in the fact that you just kind of write plugins, both client and server side, and then you're able to interact with those. But frankly, the documentation sucks. It was terrible. There's just not a whole lot of community support to it right now, and it was really kind of overkill for what it is that we need. And so we also did some performance testing and put it side by side between a couple of the different models as well. So we used like MLAPI, HLAPI, we did Mirror, Dark Rift 2, Photon, and ultimately Mirror actually had really good performance out of all of them. and it's really simple to use, right? So Mirror is by far the easiest to implement, but it does have some kind of upper bound limits to about 64 connections is kind of the upper limit to it. You can push it further than that, but we did start to see significant fall off after we had 64 clients connected to it, all shooting and running around and doing that kind of stuff. You know, it basically becomes this problem of you have to throw hardware at it to make it stable and to make it a usable experience. And so that obviously means increased infrastructure costs, which we're about to get into, but also just, you know, you have to have these kind of monolithic, massive servers, dedicated game servers to be able to run anything above 64, at least from what we saw. There were some others in the community that have had kind of better results with that, but ultimately we think that 64 connections at a time will be more than enough, at least to initially get us going. You know, we may look at changing this in the future, but ultimately I think that Mirror will be able to satisfy our needs, at least in the 1 to 2 year span as we look at the long-term roadmap of the game. So, you know, with that, it was kind of a long-winded explanation, but we are going to go ahead and switch back to Mirror. Most of that is already in place. We're able to connect. We have servers set up. It's all running locally right now on our developer machines. But at the end of this, that kind of moves us into infrastructure. And I'm going to jump around here a little bit. So it moves us into infrastructure. Those of you that don't know, we were accepted into the AWS Activate program, which does give us, I believe they give us $1,000 in credit to use towards the AWS stack. It's basically a program for startups, for early companies like us that are just kind of getting going. So we do have $1,000 in credits to use over the coming year. Honestly, that's going to go pretty quickly, you know, especially once we start doing actual closed beta testing and starting to get closer to the launch of the game. $1,000 doesn't go very far in AWS, so not with this type of infrastructure setup at least. So, you know, we'll probably use that $1,000 mostly for development work, mostly for closed beta testing, that kind of stuff. And then once the game actually launches, we'll use the funding of the game and the sales of the game to actually support the AWS infrastructure. But yes, everything will be in AWS. We do plan on using probably just EC2 instances, honestly. We've looked at a couple of their game services. We may use some of that for like matchmaking and stuff or just kind of network management, but I think ultimately we're probably just going to build that into what it is that we're doing. So we'll build it into the game itself to manage which zone you drop into, which server you hit, which servers are available, all of that good stuff that kind of goes along with that behind the scenes. So, but that is in this sprint. So we're going to go through, we're going to make sure to build out proper documentation for it, first of all, and then we'll actually stand up that infrastructure in a very limited environment. So, very small scale, very lightweight. Obviously there's not a ton of traffic going through it, just us and the developers and a handful of people that we trust to kind of help us test this. That's kind of where we're at there. And then I want to jump back to Interactables. So with Interactables, this is basically everything that you can interact with in the game. That could be a door, a garage door, a car door, car trunks. It's all of the different objects that you can pick up. So shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste, guns, weapons, ammo, literally anything that can be interacted with, we are dubbing as an interactable. And as such, all of those need to have kind of a core framework wrapped around them. So for those of you that are a little bit more techie, basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of abstract classes that will act as our base. And then everything else will kind of inherit from that. So, we're going to work through that in this coming sprint. We're going to make sure to set up our interactables, make sure that we have a good abstract base class that everything can inherit from. And then that way, if we need any overrides or anything like that, it's really easy for us to do. We could do it on an item per item basis if we needed to. But really it's going to kind of come down to, I think there'll probably be about 5 or 10 kind of core types of interactables. And I just kind of ran through some of those that came to forefront. So, but most of them share a commonality, right? It's like you can click on them, you can interact with them, things like doors, you can either open or close them, you can beat them down, break them down, that kind of stuff. So they're all very common, right? So a garage door, it's either open, close. A window is open, close, those types of things. So those all kind of share like a common abstract class that underlies this. And then the actual lootable items, so the things that are the lootable interactables, the things like medkits, weapons, ammo, just stuff that you can kind of randomly pick up laying around the map. Those also share a common base to them, and that's that you can pick them up, you can put them in your inventory, you could drop them. There's a whole host of things that you can do, inspect them, visualize them, all kinds of stuff there. So, but again, they all kind of share that same core, which is why we're creating that base abstract class, and then we'll inherit from it to actually implement the various types of interactables. That way, if we have something unique or uncommon or something like that in the future, where it's like this one type of item behaves differently, maybe a landmine or something that you're trying to defuse, it's still something you can interact with, but it's ultimately something that you interact with in a different way than you would, say, a bottle of shampoo. So I think you get the point there, though. But that also means that we need to be able to spawn objects in. So in addition to interactables, this sprint will also focus on being able to spawn objects in to the game world. So, right now everything is just kind of hard placed. It's very static, and we've applied interactable test scripts and stuff to it. But we obviously need to be able to do that on the fly as a server spins up and as a server is operating. This is actually a little bit more challenging of a topic than... Not what we expected. We always knew that this was going to be a challenging topic, but let me explain why it's a challenging topic. So it's easy to just spawn objects in at the start of a map, right? So a new server spins up. We allow 64 players to kind of seamlessly move in and out of those zones. And, that server could be online for as much as 24 hours. We anticipate a server being online for about 6 hours to 24 hours, depending on how much it's been looted, how much it's been interacted on, that type of stuff. So, it's really easy to just say, okay, well, let's spawn 10,000 items at when this map starts up. But then the problem that you run into is if you're the first player into that zone, you literally have the cream of the crop, right? You have absolutely everything on the map that you could just run through and spawn and grab and do one, and whatnot. But say you're 23 and a half hours into a server. If we don't respawn and repopulate that server with additional items, if you're the dude that spawns in at 23 and a half hours, it's empty, right? So that sucks. That's a terrible gaming experience. You may only have a half hour to play, and you don't want to waste that if you drop into a zone that's just heavily been looted, heavily been pillaged and destroyed and all of that kind of stuff. So the mechanism that we have in place is basically as a zone. So we've broken down the zones into mini zones. So each of them are kind of broken down into various smaller areas. So if you take Sunshine Estates, it's broken down into, I think it's like 24 kind of sub-zones. And basically, as players kind of move in and out of those zones, we're going to populate behind the player. So if I'm the first player into the match, I should be able to see the same thing as if I were the last player into the match. Maybe not the same thing, obviously the loot tables and stuff will take into account and that kind of stuff. But ultimately, if I log in at 23:30 out of 24 hours of that server's lifespan, I should still be able to obtain loot. And so basically what we're doing is we're saying, okay, if zone 0, and we've started at a 0 numbering, so 0 through 23, if zone 0 has only one player in it or maybe no players, we're going to go ahead and restock that zone. And that basically just means that we're going to rerun the loot tables on that particular kind of mini zone. And that way it's stocked up. So as you load into a map, if you spawn into that zone 0, you're going to be able to have a good amount of loot to be able to choose from. And then we'll kind of do that. So as players kind of migrate around the map, and we can control that a little bit based on where we spawn people. So if if a zone becomes empty, we can actually just kind of not spawn players there and kind of push players away. There are also some other things that we can do by trying to put like roaming, scavs I don't want to use the word scav. That's scroungers, I guess, or hunters or something like that. Basically just like NPC packs. And we can try and encourage players to kind of leave that area by populating it with additional AI to kind of push you out of that zone. So, if there's a zone that's maybe too empty or, there's just not enough loot in it, we can spawn some additional AI to try and push players out of it so that we can go and kind of backfill that particular area. So, there's a lot of things that we're kind of playing with. I'm not saying that that's written in stone right now as far as the AI and stuff, but we're definitely kind of going to this mentality of, okay, if a mini zone is lessly populated and it's almost out of loot or at a certain threshold, we're going to go ahead and resupply that and allow new players to come into that. So not only is it a dynamic server where it stays online for 6 to 24 hours, but it's also kind of dynamic little mini zones inside of that will populate again as need be. So hopefully that makes sense. I can definitely expand on that a little bit more, especially as we start to get some of this developed out and in place. We'll be able to show you kind of how the server sees things and how it goes about actually repopulating some of that stuff. But we think that that's going to be a really cool and a really interactive way to do things. But again, we're going to have to kind of see, I guess. And the last thing is damage models. So, along with all of this, and I'm actually going to jump into the game here. Now, this is all very rough, very early, right? So, and I can shoot this weapon here, but it's a little bit too large for the screen. We haven't done scaling stuff. And it's very much just kind of a placement. We put, just kind of an out-of-the-box, super standard, like muzzle flash on it. But it does actually send out a projectile, and we do get the hit data back on that now and whatnot. So, we've made some progress in regards to that. But we've also kind of started adding in some additional details here. It's each of these buildings have kind of a backyard to them now, and they're all semi detailed. There's maybe a little bit more that we need to do and want to do to these zones, but again, we're starting to kind of populate some of this out here. We're also playing around with like various textures and stuff, but you can see, and like I said, this isn't the movement model. I've got a bunch of the features turned off here with this, but the goal again is to give you plenty of places to kind of work your way around the map. And then over here we've got it's kind of a clinic. I think we're gonna change this building out, but it's kind of it's meant to be like a little kind of mini clinic or something like that. But the idea is one of these actually has a pool. I'm gonna go find that while we're doing that. So we built in a pool back here, which was kind of cool. But that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, I don't want to take up a ton more time because I'm already up to about 17 or 18 minutes here, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing me speak. So, but we're definitely making our way. There's the pool. Yeah. But we're definitely making progress on this. That's kind of the goals that, we wanted to illustrate that to you and let you, see that we're making progress and tell you what we're going to be working on here in the coming sprint. So, with all of that though, thanks for listening. If you made it this long into me droning and doing all this, I greatly appreciate it. But, I know you don't like the sound of my voice. What? No, I don't believe you. But anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you for the support that you've shown us thus far. By all means, please head over to Steam and wishlist the game. Be sure to join us on Discord if you can. Head over to Patreon and support us there. And otherwise, I appreciate y'all. I will see you later in the week, probably Friday when I do the next developer log. So, again, thanks for watching. I hope y'all have a great week. I will talk to you later in the week.